Newport Majority is our voter registration campaign. In 2016, he created the Black Broward Film Project, a documentary series on the past, the present, and the future of Black communities in Broward County, using film as a way to bridge the gap between elders and millennials. During the process, he joined the Cultural Arts Committee of Jania Beach to have a part in the rising amount of art tourism in Broward. He is also the co-creator of the Sistrunk A Fair, a week-long exhibit dedicated to art for the Black communities of Broward. Let's clap it up for Emmanuel on the left. Jeff Carroll has written and produced two films, Holla If I Kill You and Gold Digger Killer, which won Best Picture at the International Hip Hop Film Festival. He is also a published author, and his short stories have been featured in the Black Science Fiction Society and the State of Black Science Fiction. Carroll travels the country with the Monster Panel, a traveling event produced and moderated by him, focused on Black sci-fi. So let's wrap it up. Okay, let's begin with the questions. So first, I'd like you both to share some initial reaction on horror noir and on your own relationship with Black horror. We can start with Jeff, since you were with us last time. How was your second viewing of horror noir?
Actually, I tried to watch it this afternoon just to get it again, but I wasn't able to, so I was looking at this with a lot more attentiveness, and I think they hit a whole lot of good marks in it. I do like the check off, you know, where they had the different tropes and they were talking about how our characters evolve, and I think it is important. I think, you know, I was always excited because I get into the story elements of our cultural perspectives as opposed to just the character evolution, and I think we're moving into more of a cultural variation, evolution since the making of this. So.
Awesome. And Emmanuel, if this is your first time seeing the horror noir, what are your initial reactions?
Oh, I honestly loved it. I mean, just going back to Birth of a Nation and just seeing the character development from Blaxploitation to the 80s, the Jasons and the Freddys, and how we were constantly just getting killed at the beginning, to going out to the present. Like, it really excites me seeing what the future holds, because like there's so many stories that can be done through from horror in Black horror, Black cinema, because it's like our life is pretty much horror. So like there's so much that one can see, and I'm even like having ideas like while I'm watching this for like what the future can hold, especially like on a local level in Broward County.
Beautiful Black film inspired me. So starting with Emmanuel, we'll ask, growing up, what films by Black filmmakers influenced you, and how did they influence you?
I would say, well, my favorite movie of all time is City of God. It's a Brazilian film based on the favelas. I don't think it was a Black filmmaker that did it, but it really touched on like the Black experience down there. Beautiful film was shot. Lil Z and Lil Rocket were just like this, you know, Shaggy and all the characters, and they were just phenomenal. A favorite film of all time. And I would also say a lot of Spike Lee films. Spike Lee was a huge influence on myself. Just watching films like Clockers and School Days and Malcolm X, and even like some of his lesser known films like 25th Hour were pretty phenomenal and like was very eye opening for me as a young Black creative, because it was always like this. Growing up, it was either like school. I mean, not school. I'm sorry. It was either playing ball or you know, choosing a life of crime and whatnot for me. And you know, seeing people like Spike Lee was really like eye-opening, that I could just be a creative and do some dope creative things.
Nice. And Jeff, same question, what Black films influenced you, Black filmmakers, and how?
I'm a real old school Renaissance person. I go back to Buck and the Preacher, you know, where we embrace well, you know, they went back to the black and white times. But, you know, Buck and the Preacher is a quick story with Harry Belafonte and Sidney Poitier and Ruby Dee. And they go to embrace 40 Acres and a Mule, and they go out west to claim their land, and they're pursued by plantation owners who would like to get them back. And they travel through Native American land and make teams with the Native Americans, and they are able to survive. And it's empowering. They fighting them. It's more empowering than, say, Django, right?
Okay.
So that's one film, and then I'm gonna throw another one at you. It's actually made the year that I was born in '67, and that was a film with Brock Peters. I actually would love for y'all to screen it because I want to hear other people's reaction, and it's called The Incident. I was born in the Bronx. I'm a migrant from New York, and that story was about a subway train ride, where people were victimized one by one, and none of them helped each other out. And the same people victimized them all the way down the train ride. And I just felt that, you know, living in America, in the horror world of black people, that, yeah, I always believed that, yeah, there were more good white people than bad white people, but they stood around and didn't do anything. You know what I'm saying? And The Incident was one of those stories that kind of offered a message, like, daggone good people, stop praying, come out of the church and grab the axe, you know, and stop them. You standing there witnessing, you know, this nonsense. You outnumber the bad guys. So that was it, you know, almost like we're the majority, you know, but we just don't realize it. So we're a sleeping giant, and we just gotta wake up. But y'all should screen that movie. It's very interesting. Yes.
Take note of that.
That's actually, it's actually free on YouTube, so.
Okay, maybe we can do a follow-up with The Incident.
How about that?
That'd be dope. Okay, start with you, Jeff, and I think you touched on this in the first answer you made. But the ending of Horror Noire shows that we're in a moment where in this country where black film and art is blossoming. Do you agree with this statement, or is it too early to call?
I would say that it's been blossoming for a while. Yes, we are in fashion. I actually left my job to start my passion again of filmmaking and storytelling. I had made 2 movies and ended up making a 3rd movie my last semester of teaching. And this past summer I directed and made my 4th movie. They're kind of all horrors, but I was inspired by Get Out and Us to make more film and be a part of it. But I also think, you know, we're not just seeing, thank you, the wife is there, right? I don't think we're just seeing a token renaissance. You know, a lot of us are like fully inflamed emotionally with Tyler Perry getting his studio, because we know that this is an opportunity of that's not just given to you. It's a seized opportunity. It's an empowered opportunity, and that feels a lot different than, say, Spike Lee raised a lot of money and got his movie approved by Hollywood. Yeah. Now we got streaming services. We don't even have to go to Hollywood anymore. We got a studio. We can make a movie and get it out.
Anybody else have a question? Do you feel that black film and art is blossoming, or is it too early to tell?
I mean, I'm 31 years old, and I definitely feel as if it's growing, it's elevating higher and higher. The Spike Lee renaissance in the 80s and 90s was like pretty huge in terms of just seeing black people on film and just seeing how we're represented and just we're shown in different lights. And speaking on a local level, I do see like it really rising. There's a lot of young black filmmakers locally in Broward County who are doing a lot of creative things, and now we have more access to like these cameras and equipment to make our films and make our work show. And it's just also just seeing more platforms that could be created for us in Broward, for young black filmmakers. It's something that's like kind of like a void right now, and I think it could definitely open up. And like, that's kind of like one of the reasons why I like to focus on like the local black history in Broward, because we don't really see and know much local black history. When I was watching watching this film, I was thinking about some horror stories that I've heard from back in the day here in Broward County. I mean, like even like right up the street where we're at on Sunrise, you could look at the cemetery when you're on I-95 and you're exiting off Sunrise East, and many people may not know the story about that cemetery. But when they were building I-94, that was the first black cemetery in Broward County. But also when they were building I-95, many people talk about how they would run highways through black communities. That cemetery extended all the way out to the second train tracks, where like the Amtrak and the M go through. So literally, when you're driving I-95 north and I-95 south past Sunrise, you're literally driving over black bodies. Now, there's still black bodies that was buried under there. I think about Dania Beach, where I live and where I've been living for quite some time, and how black bodies were digged up, you know, because white people felt as if they didn't want to integrate with black people beyond the grave. They felt they didn't want to integrate beyond.
Even in Africa.
Yeah, they want to be buried. They didn't want their loved ones to be buried next to black loved ones. So then that was what caused the West Lawn Cemetery and the regular Woodlawn Cemetery on the east side of Dania Beach. And they had to dig up black bodies, and some black bodies they still don't know where they are at today. So I think about some of these stories. I think about some of the films that I've done, like the Black Briar Film Project and Art Beyond the Tracks, which talks about art gentrification, and the Four Pillars of South Broward, the Night of the Palms, and the Hallandale Story. Just talking about local black history and doing it in a creative way through film. A lot of young black filmmakers reach out to me about ideas that they would want me to do and things like that. So there's definitely a renaissance. It's just that we just need more platforms and more resources for the young black filmmakers in Broward County.
And the last question, starting with you, Emmanuel. What are your thoughts on Jordan Peele's Us, and what message did you get from it?
All right. Well, honestly, I've been very busy. I haven't seen Us yet. I saw Get Out. I know.
Okay, that's homework for you.
I gotta watch Us. Definitely gotta see it. But I heard a lot of great things about it. Get Out was phenomenal. It was a phenomenal film. I could talk about that. And I could just see like what Mr. Peele is doing. There's so much potential for what he has going on, like in terms of making, like, using the black experience and the black horror we have and making film out of it. You know, we can talk about like Jim Crow, we can talk about racism, police brutality, all these things through film that he's doing. Like, he's using like what we go through and doing it in a creative way, and it's just so beautiful to me.
Okay, so ending with Jeff, what are your thoughts on Jordan Peele's Us, and what message did you get from it, especially as a black filmmaker?
I'll start by saying, yes, as a migrant, I was open to some of the legends in South Florida and the tropes in Florida in general. And I was inspired by Get Out and Us. And I wrote a movie, right now it's called Cut Out. And it takes place, a group of interracial couple, a black student dating a white student, a white girl student dating a black gentleman, and they're leaving Florida State and FAMU to come to Miami, South Beach for spring break. And it happens that their car breaks down in Central Florida. See, now y'all all know the trope, right? But if I was to say that to a New Yorker or somebody from a different part of the country, they probably wouldn't know. So they experience a very interesting experience there. And so when I think of Get Out and Us, back to answering the question, I think a lot of times it epitomizes our ability to have unique plays on common tropes. We see things different. We have different experiences. Like just one other example. I have a story called It Happened on Negro Mountain, right? It's a place named Negro Mountain in Western Maryland, okay? That's right, I'm wearing the shirt, right? So Negro Mountain is like very much like Jamaica. The slaves escaped, the Africans escaped, defended it, and they named the place after them. So I took that real legend and said, well, those ancestors still protect that mountain. So I reversed Amityville Horror and said, Negro Mountain is a place where bad things happen to bad people. Meaning, as an African American or an African, I'm not scared of the dead, because the dead are my ancestors. My grandmother protects me. My grandfather protects me. I better watch out and not do anything bad, because then that's when the walls will start bleeding, the house will start shaking. So I reversed it, but corrected based on my African culture. So those type of stories are the type of stories that we should see on the horizon, because we are actualizing and empowering ourselves.
Beautiful. We have room for some questions, so if anybody in the audience wants to ask either Jeff or Emmanuel anything.
I got a question. Jeff, what led to your passion for making movies?
To both of them or
To
just?
both of them.
Okay, yeah, which one start first?
I was a little kid that used to see movies done on 42nd Street, and in my cousin's neighborhood, they didn't really play them in the theater, and we used to suggest movies to the theater owner, and we suggested such good movies, they did well. I was like, wow, I got an eye for making movies. Now I can, think I can put the movie that I suggest in a theater, and that little bit of empowerment from a little maybe 10-year-old kid wanting to see movies in his own cousin's neighborhood, right, is now what allows me to want to see my own stories in all neighborhoods, right? So that's a little bit of it.
I mean, I've always written screenplays and stuff like that going back to high school, and I went to Full Sail for a little bit, Full Sail University in Orlando, but like I dropped out because the school was too expensive, and I'm not trying to die in debt.
Right.
So so I was like, I think I could do some things like this on my own, and that's what basically pushed me to do it. And it was also my love of local Black history. Give credit to Marvin Dunn, who wrote Black Miami, the 20th Century, and Dr. Kitty Oliver, who wrote Race and Change in Hollywood, Florida, two books, and which is about the local Black South Florida experience. And it really led me to be like, okay, well, us millennials and Generation Z after need to know about what's happening locally about our history. So how can I do this in a way that would get people's attention and not put people to sleep? And one of the ways was through film, and that's what basically led me to do more so documentary style film as opposed to like actual like screenplay film. Because to me it was just more candid, and it was something that I just found more love for.
Thank you. Does anyone else have a question they want to ask? And then.
I don't want to sound ignorant or out of place, but is there room for white influence on your Black movies, right? Or white people's work? I mean, is it important to you that this is created, written, directed, and starred and by all Black people, or is there room for an integration? Or is it, at this point in time, is it really important that it's all Black? And then when you push forward, there can be this integration. Do you understand what I'm?
Yeah,
I understand.
that's a great question. I mean, for me, like me personally, like a lot of people I work with are Black filmmakers and Black artists and Black creatives and whatnot. And a lot of the stories I've done so far basically has been about the Black experience. Now there is always room to talk about, the white influence and that aspect as well. And like one of the things that was talked about, like which I've actually done, was I did a short film on Hallandale. There used to be a club in Hallandale called the Palms, which was in the late 1950s. It's called A Night at the Palms, a Hallandale story. Many people like Sam Cooke, James Brown, Etta James, Marvin Gaye, a lot of legendary people used to come to Hallandale. That was like the cultural epicenter of Black Broward. And one of the interesting aspects was there was some white influence in it, because the club was originally owned by a white man. And then also we got to talk about Hallandale. You got to talk about, not trying to put people in a negative spotlight, but the mafia influence in Hallandale. Gulfstream was very much like owned by the mob. And one of the stories was that there's a historian by the name of Hubert Hammer Jackson, and he was telling the story about his uncle. His uncle used to chauffeur for like Meyer Lansky and Lucky Luciano and like these mobsters, and how someone, his uncle was getting beat up at the Palms, because the Palms was getting very violent at one point. And his uncle was getting beat up, and his cousin ended up killing the guy that was, in the fight. He ended up killing the guy, he shot him in the back of the head, and never served a day in prison due to him being a chauffeur for Meyer Lansky. And it also just took like hearing some of the white side, like the east side of the train tracks about these stories as well. So there's always room to talk about it. We got to hear all sides, but right now I've honestly just been like just working with Black filmmakers.
Jeff, is there room for integrating white stories or white
I would-
It wasn't necessarily stories, but
okay.
the creative input,
I would say,
or even a perspective.
or white
Well,
perspective?
I would answer in my Chuck D voice and say, "What are you, scared of a black planet?" this, I'm a member of a whole bunch of groups on Facebook, and, do you have a book that's all black characters? And as a science fiction writer, was one of the trends that we had last week, or a story with all black people. And so your question is like in front of the camera and behind the camera, right? So I am from an integrated town, and I haven't really had an all black story. I've got to kill somebody, so there's room for white people. I'm sorry. No, what it does is
encouraging violence.
Right. Hey, it's a horror story, right? So you got to kill somebody. I think of the kill scenes as I write my script. But what it does is I do diversity. So it's not an effort to have just white people, is I open it up to everybody, because at the end of the day, it's like the running theme was, I'm not scared of a story that's all white people. So I want to scare everybody, so I actually do try to make it a point to have a diverse palette, in my stories. Now, behind the camera, I have, my first crew was a group of white twins, right? And they were my first film crew. And then the ones that shot this, the Death Pledge, were black twins, right? And so it's just, I've been happy to work with them. But I'm kind of an equal opportunity person. However, what I think centralizes a black story is the black story. So my characters are not going to be scared of necessarily the dead unless it's an enraged dead spirit, right? Because dead is not synonymous with bad. That to me is what makes it black, right? Because it's a black story round. So no, but you're free like anybody else. My knives killing.
And the last question, sure, the blue, sir, the blue hat, and then you. Yeah.
It's the same thing. My understanding is like it's very important to talk about the past, so we could understand the phrase of what we have right now. But basically, do you guys focus more on the past history, or actually what happened on certain issue? By example, people actually in some jail for certain things, so they had so much time they had to pass in jail or whatever. Do you guys focus more on that?
I'll take that question. I'll say like this. I'm a liar, right? So as a liar, I suspend reality. And sometimes my stories, you don't know whether they've happened or they're going to happen. Or even if they're happening right now and you just don't know it. And that's an effort to be timeless. However, I do play on history, So like the Death Pledge, just to give you an example, this movie is actually coming out Thanksgiving weekend. So streaming services, a little shameless plug. But I'm gonna give you an example. It's taking place in an African burial ground that was recently unearthed, because you gotta have scary vocabulary, right? After Hurricane Irma. And the pledge part is that African fraternities, black fraternities, or just hip hop fraternities are given their pledges the assignment to excavate and document who's in the grave site. So the fraternity sororities become futuristic because they don't exist. You got Alpha Sigma Sigma, the ladies of ass. You got Pimp Psi Psi. All of this is futuristic. I have the LGBT, ladies of Lambda Iota Kappa, Lick, right? And then what is, I have an African one. So I mixed the palette up, and you don't know if they have those type of organizations or if they may have those type of organizations. But the history is he was a tormented boxer during the time of slavery. And he won his freedom, and then he was taken back into slavery, like 12 years a slave, and lynched, and his spirit is tormented. So when they unearth his gravesite, he goes Freddy Krueger on everybody. So I blend that to the point where, the filmmakers are from Tampa. We just found 2 gravesites for African burial grounds in Tampa. Wow. So the possibility that there may be a tormented spirit resting is there, so you never know. That's the best part of lying.
In reality, and last question,
Yes, like how do you as a filmmakers and, more Emmanuel that is, reclaiming Black history here in South Florida, it's really cool. But like, how do you feel when you see that they use, the way they are showing the documentary, it's like how they misrepresent Black people. They said in the movie that, everybody else, like that's the way that they found to put Black people in the movies, like as monsters or homosexuals, yeah. So how do you feel that you can change that when the whole industry is dominated by white people right now?
That's a good question.
It's a great question. Oh my. I feel as if my role in terms of documentaries and storytelling is to show some of these stories that people do not hear about and do not know about, and in a way that can mobilize them to, look more into, their own background, into their own backyard, and then they could take a little bit more pride in their areas and then really want to do something. I feel as if like young Black people in Broward County, if they were to know more about like the education here, that we had prominent Black high schools. Of course, people know about Dillard and Blanche Ely High School, but also Addicts. Well, now it's a middle school, but it was a high school. And people were to know more that we had like Black business districts and prominent people, elected officials who came from these neighborhoods. I feel as if people would look more into it as instead of just, oh, this is just my hood, or something like that, to take pride of. It was like, hey, this is my community because these people are from here. We had doctors, scientists, a lot of educated people here. So I feel as if these are ways that can get people to take pride more, and then to be also represented more. Because now you're mobilizing other creatives. It's not just like, okay, you're just gonna be an athlete from this neighborhood, or you're just gonna be a 9-to-5 worker, or you're just gonna be someone trafficking. Now it's now you could be an artist, you could be a filmmaker, and it's showing that like, hey, well, Emmanuel did it, and he's from these areas, and I'm not an athlete, but I'm a creative, I'm a curator, I'm a filmmaker. So I think these ways are ways that can mobilize other people into getting themselves more involved.
I think just by being authentic and trying to do right, you answer back. Cause I love to snap. So like if you tell a bad joke on me, I'm not gonna just laugh. I'm gonna think of a bad joke and tell it on you. And sometimes the best way to fight lies are with the truth. We're going to see Harriet Friday, and that is righting the wrongs that have been told about us for a long time just by putting our stories out there on the screen. So I majored in African history. So I always start my stories with a little bit of historical accuracy, and the beautiful thing is our stories really haven't been told. So just telling our truth is intriguing, and I think that's important, and just putting it out there.
Awesome. Well, that wraps up our Q&A. Let's give another hand for her. So filmmakers are doing their part, obviously, with Emmanuel and Jeffrey, establishing a new Black narrative. And it speaks to all of us, so we should do our part as well. If you are here, please make sure to get involved with us, New Florida Majority. The 2020 election is coming up, as we all know, and you can all make a difference. We have Patricia Combs, who is the Fort Lauderdale organizer.